Hudson and Scotty B need a therapist. I'm Hudson Hott, Scotty Blaisdell, my partner, and Alan Wagner, our therapist. And I think for today's segment, you should kick things off with a song, Scotty.
You're cheating hard. Hank Williams Jr. right there, by the
Is
way.
that it? You
Yeah.
know, we've got this insane therapist who's really well known for saving marriages. And I'm sure you deal with a lot of cheating. And you know, I think all of us at some point have at least been cheated on, and it sucks. And I think that if we could get into Alan's brain today and talk about it, can you survive cheating? Or how do you survive after it? And how do you move past? We have a legit professional who specializes in this, and we're going to take full advantage of you, Alan.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. I mean, because there's somebody right now who's listening to this podcast who maybe has been cheated on and they don't know how to move past it, or should they? That's a question I've always wondered. Do you tend to direct people when they've been cheated on to fix it or to move on?
As a therapist, we shouldn't really be directing people at all. I mean, all we can do is kind of show everybody all options, and they have to own their choices. And I remember early on in my career, our supervisors told us, don't tell a person to quit their job, don't tell a person to leave their relationship, don't tell a person to leave the city, don't tell, you don't want somebody later in life making a consequential decision and saying, but my therapist told me to do that. Because they have to own their choices. At the end of the day, we're all adults here. And so as a therapist, my goal is like imagine a coffee table, get everything out of their brain, put it on the table, have them look at it objectively and decide what's the best option for them because they have to own that choice.
So, what do you think happens more often? Do people get past it and through it, or is that the straw that breaks the camel's back, as they say?
I'd say if as a rule of thumb, if we're going to like talk about it in a bell curve kind of way, the majority of people don't move past it because it is probably the biggest trust violation you can have in a relationship of two best friends. And it can destroy intimacy. And even when people forgive, sometimes they don't forget. And it's something that people have to live with forever. But I also have seen it work out. And a lot of times when people are reaching out to me, that is their goal when there's been infidelity is to fix it. And it takes a certain type of a person to understand that there isn't really, I mean, there is good and evil, I think, in this world. We talked about that in another podcast. But when it comes to most human beings, we make bad choices. We sometimes get lost in things and we don't realize what's happening. And there are those people who can lie and have double marriages and be cheating with hookers at night and not telling their wife or I understand those types of people, but there's a lot of people who are very lonely in marriages. And those people sometimes talk too much to coworkers, talk too much to parents, talk too much to other friends of theirs or their wives of their friends. And they develop emotional intimacy that becomes love. And when you don't have love and emotional intimacy at home, sometimes we crave it. And we don't even realize, like a magnet, that we're sort of around that person to feel like our best self because we don't feel that way at home anymore. And I think when a partner understands that they created the climate intentionally or unintentionally, where that person felt so lonely in the relationship, so ugly, so invaluable, so replaceable, that that person was totally susceptible to another person praising them.
Now, someone might say this is victim blaming if you're telling us that the person who wasn't giving them enough of what they needed deserved to be cheated
Mhm.
on. How does someone own their cheating if they're getting validated for having done it?
There is no excuse for cheating, Scotty. And I make that very clear with couples that there's always another way to handle things when you feel lonely in a relationship or disconnected from your partner. There is no excuse for it, but there's an explanation for why it happens sometimes. And I think some people can understand the explanation because they can take ownership of their role in the disconnect they caused in that relationship. And maybe in some ways they shut that person out without realizing it or realizing it because they were angry about something. And they can look inward and say, you know what? It's not that this person should have cheated on me, but I understand why they felt so alone. I understand my role in this relationship where I created the disconnect. And if I can change our relationship, we can be happy together. There doesn't have to be this disconnect.
But I mean, when you get to that point, because there are some people that need such constant adoration, and if you are not giving that person is seeking it out elsewhere, like you said, in their workplace, maybe with a friend, and they're getting that emotional connection. And again, that is still a form of cheating. That's like the biggest form of cheating, if you ask me, more than even physical.
Yes, I think that emotional cheating is the same thing. I think once you start talking about personal things with your relationships or your own inner workings with people, yeah, that's something that should be safe for your partner. It shouldn't be going to other people.
Now, would that be an easier fix for someone versus somebody who's had a physical cheating? If it was only emotional cheating, which is not only, that's to me.
No, it's still cheating. But I guess you're right. I think a lot of people are more willing to forgive if it doesn't take those physical lines that are crossed. We
Right.
can look past that and understand that sometimes a person didn't even realize what they were doing. It just sort of, it was in a chat or something like that online, or they were texting somebody. They didn't realize where it was going, and they never did anything physically. But again, it is cheating. It is a breaching of trust. But that said, we're talking about like emotional cheating, and yes, that is easier to forgive for a lot of people than physical cheating. But cheating in general isn't something that people usually forgive. But sometimes the person isn't truly a victim either. They were not the person in the relationship they should have been. And so again, not excusing cheating, but that person is not innocent either.
Okay, let's just play this out as if that happened the way you just described it, and then the person forgives the cheating.
Mhm.
Down the line, do you ever really get free of that and into a trusting place again?
Not always.
I
You know,
could never.
I have interventions because I do want people to, on, let's say today's the 17th or 18th of September, to say from this point forward, I forgive you. I accept everything that you've done in the past, and I will never bring it up again because I'm making the choice today to be with you regardless. And if you do that and you're fighting over a restaurant or you're fighting over a home repair or something like that, you don't get to do it anymore because you knew everything in the past and you still on the present day said, I'm moving forward, love you, forgive you, and won't hold this against you. And if that's the case, then a person can live a relationship where you make a mistake and it gets fixed. But if that person doesn't do that, then that will throw a wrench into everything. Like for the rest of that relationship, that person can say, yeah, but I wasn't the one who blanked that girl, or I wasn't the one, who hooked up with that guy.
I can't imagine somebody just not bringing it back up in the heat of a moment because I don't imagine that anyone could ever forget that.
But that's the thing I ask, Hudson, is I want to know in the beginning of couples counseling when infidelity is at stake, regardless if you want to forgive your partner and you love your partner, if you are honest with yourself and you know you never will forgive them, then
Right.
don't do it. I can tell by the way that you're talking right now, like most people, that you would never forgive that. And it would
No.
come up in every situation of, where that person lets you down. And so you are not the person to stay with a person who cheats. But again, there are people in this world that can find that forgiveness if they look in the mirror sometimes and they realize my partner is not a bad person. They slipped into an emotional affair without realizing it. I treated them horribly. And as a result of it, they couldn't come to me as a friend anymore. And unconsciously, this developed on the side. It wasn't something that was conscious or malicious or evil. It just
Right.
happened. And I think in those cases, you can forgive sometimes if you know you were the one at fault.
Scotty, what about you? Do you think that you would be able, as an individual, to ever get past that?
Oh, that's a tough one. I have a hard time playing that out in my mind. Before I got married, obviously I was in other relationships. Oh, shocker. And I was cheated on, and that was the end of the relationship. So I guess it depends on where you are in your commitment level with that person, that maybe that factors in. I can't imagine how you move on from that, but that's just imagining.
Right.
Well,
I have friends who are still married to this day,
mhm.
and one of them cheated very early on in their relationship, and somehow, I don't know how my girlfriend has ever gotten over it. I haven't for her. But there they are, and we're talking now it's 20, 21, or 22 years they've been married. And so it does take a certain person, and I would never be that
Look,
person.
we all have to be aware of what are our boundaries of trust. And I know for me, it's like forget even sex or cheating. When people break my trust, I can forgive but not forget sometimes. And when we talk about those circles of that donut, sometimes as we have in other podcasts, I don't always let people back in even when they let me down. And so I'm not a person necessarily, even when I understand why a person did what they did, that could probably be okay with it if Hudson was to cheat on me, no matter what. But at the same time, I understand there are other people who can. I understand that there are other people who can
Yeah.
be in loving relationships, but have it open and have physical relationships outside of the other relationship and still be in love and loyal to the other person. It's not something that I could do,
Could
but I
never.
know they can. So who am I to say, how a person feels about their own safety and trust? I'm not going to apply it to myself. I've seen it all. But in this particular case, I'll just say that, like, for me personally, I understand what you're saying. It's not something that I could just let go of. It would be too hurtful for me. But I have
Okay.
seen it fixed.
Communication needs to go to 100% at that point, I would imagine.
If you're going to
No,
try to keep it together, there has to be full transparency, open phones, open passwords. There's no secrets. And a person has to actually not only just tell what's been caught or discovered by the partner, but they have to tell everything that the partner doesn't even know so that the partner can then make an informed decision. But a lot of times people deny it. They'll minimize it. They'll say, "Oh, it just happened this one time," or because somebody just happens to catch a text message or an email and or a credit card statement or something like that, and they don't tell the whole truth. And in that situation, you can't fix it. But if you do tell the whole truth and your partner can actually understand the thought process, sometimes it can be fixed if it's honest.
right.
Can I throw, this is just
Yeah.
me. This is just how I live my life based on my beliefs. I find I have to catch things super early before they get out of hand. And I have people in my life that have intimate relationships with, good, close buddies that I can go to and say, listen, I'm starting to become aware of the shape of women right now. I'm walking around and I'm seeing things and I'm being drawn to that. Or I wanted to look at something on the internet that I know I shouldn't be looking at, and I need to get this I need to get it into the light. I'll go to my wife and say, I'm struggling right now. I'm having thoughts I shouldn't be having, and I want you to know about that. And I don't necessarily have to be specific, but she knows what that means because she knows where I can go if I get past that point. So I would recommend, this is not the therapy side, this is the other side for me, is start living in the light, even in the temptation and the thoughts, and then it won't snowball into something else.
I think that's pretty insightful, Scotty. I think
That
a lot of
really
people.
is, Scotty. Are you sure you weren't a therapist in your past life? Because that was pretty insightful. That was no, really. I think that that's something that, you might be in a healthy relationship right now or you feel like you are, but think about those times when you're not feeling 100% loved by your partner for whatever it might be. It just might be the day that you're having. And talk with them. It's about the communication, and you just have to say, because if you told your partner, like if I said to Alan, babe, I'm not really feeling lovey today. I'm feeling like I need something extra because I know what I need and I know he's capable of giving it to me and he might not even be aware, do you know? And I
And
think
to be able to say, I value our relationship enough. I want to have this conversation because I want us to be close and intimate.
Yeah.
correct. Yeah. So I think that, think about these things as you might be in a very healthy relationship, but these are all things to keep that relationship healthy between you and your significant other.
But a lot of people don't even know what a healthy relationship is because people who've been together and had children with people for over 10 years, 15 years sometimes, they don't understand that they just think it's normal that, she's on her phone doing Instagram, I'm in here watching sports, and, we go to bed separately and eventually, we don't touch each other, we don't have sex with each other anymore. Like a lot of times people think that's a normal marriage. And their friends would agree with it. There's movies even about it. So it's like a cliche almost. And so I think sometimes people don't realize when something isn't right. And so for Scotty to be able to have that insight with Angie and say, I'm starting to notice that I'm feeling a little bit off when we work on us, that's awesome. But how many people have that kind of insight, especially how many men have that insight where they're thinking about it like, I'm noticing women right now. And I'm noticing that there's a potential that I might start connecting with women, and I should probably talk to my wife about it. And I wish there were more men like that, but that's not the case usually.
If you don't mind, can we move to those that have had been in a relationship with someone, it ended this way,
Mm.
and they're trying to build trust in a new relationship?
Oh,
Yeah.
What is the advice you would give or help you would give someone so that they can trust again?
I think you have to go to therapy. I think that to pretend that the influences of our past, whether it be our work history, our relationship history, our family history, doesn't impact the present is crazy. So if you have trauma in your relationship history and you don't really work through it and either absolve yourself of the blame or understand it's not a generalization of what women do or what men do, it's what that person did to you.
Right.
So that you can look at each person in a different way. And I think a lot of people struggle with that because they just sort of see triggers because the other person used to do this and they were a cheater. The other person used to do that and they were a cheater. And I think in those situations, most people are not cheaters, in my opinion, that I've met. But at the same time, there's a lot of overlap on behaviors. And so I understand there's going to be echo effects of you feeling stupid or you feeling gaslit or you feeling misled. And why didn't I see it? I think it's helpful sometimes when you are cheated on. Again, I'm not blaming the victim, but wonder why. What was this person that cheated on you like an evil, horrible person and you just didn't see it right? You had bad, character assessment, or was it your own behavior in the relationship? And again, like look at the past of your relationships. Does that happen all the time? Are you cheated on in every relationship? And again, that's not saying that you deserve to be, but ask yourself why that's happening. What is it in the selection
But
process, or what is it
you
in
know,
your own, in what you're giving in the relationship that is making it feel not connected so that the other person is even in a position where they're making these connections outside the relationship?
Before you say something, Hudson, I know you're about to chime in with something thoughtful, but what you just said there was kind of interesting because you said your selection process,
Mhm.
because I think sometimes you can tend toward a certain type of person that
correct.
is exciting, is whatever it is, I don't know. But that type of person tends to let you down, and your selection process maybe needs to change.
That's where I was going because there was a time in my life I only liked the bad boys, so to speak. Scotty, you've been with me practically my whole life. So there is a type. And that particular type are the ones that care about how they look, how many abs they have, that whole scenario. And it is a type, and a lot of times that particular type are cheaters. I'm not saying all are, but they're so self-centered. It's totally a type. And I changed my type. You were so not my type at all. I had
You're
a
talking about
different type.
Alan? You
Yeah.
said you. I was just making sure you weren't including me in the
I
you.
wasn't, no, I sometimes I
I had an ex-girlfriend, and I remember she admitted to me that she had cheated in her previous relationships, and there was logic. It was like, oh, it was the high school boyfriend that she went away to college. Like there would seem to be normalization to how those things played out, that she wasn't like evil or something. But I think when I noticed that she was an insecure person, she was beautiful. Like she was one of those people that people would approach in a bar all the time, trying to get her number. And she was gorgeous, but inside, because of her mom, who really beat her down, she had very low self-esteem. So she always sought out validation from other people, and the way she dressed, the comments she would sort of seek out. She was always seeking out validation because she never felt whole herself. And as a boyfriend, you try to make a person feel safe, but sometimes you just can't because as many times as you're saying things, it's like a glass with no bottom. It's just falling right through. And so when you have a partner who needs the validation of others to feel good about themselves, and that can be entertainment people sometimes, that could be a lot of anybody really, but where they're out and they want somebody to compliment their dress, they want someone to compliment that they look hot, and they seek it out. And this girl, I remember she would like be so proud of herself if guys were buying her drinks and everything else. She felt so good about herself. But in reality, when someone is playing with fire like that, it doesn't take much to have a problem in your relationship with her and someone else to be there to jump right in and make it think that this is the right thing for her. And it wasn't. But I learned in life that a person has to be self-contained,
Mm.
that they can be beautiful, like not an arrogant way of knowing you're beautiful, but be confident in who you are. Don't dress a certain way to try to garner attention. Just be beautiful. And if people compliment you, say thank you. But don't be that person who is so needy for that validation. And I think I made a different choice when we were talking about selections after that, is that I needed people who were confident and not insecure. And if they were cheated on, they went to therapy and they worked on it.
Yeah,
yeah.
because I mean, I think what you're saying is maybe as the relationship goes further and they're not getting enough of that feeding of their need, then
Mhm.
they start to draw that yummy, complimentary
Right.
stuff from other people, and it
Correct.
draws them outside of the relationship.
We're doing everything right for that partner, but that partner is broken and isn't fixing themselves. And therefore, they're putting themselves in places where the relationship's always going to be at risk.
I'm somebody who now truly believes in therapy, and not because I'm married to a therapist, but I do get to see all of the good that Alan does in his career. We get the cards, gifts for Christmas and holidays from years ago of people's marriages that he's saved. But I recently went to therapy because I was cheated on, and it really was playing into so many other aspects of my life that I finally noticed. And Alan and I talked about it, and I went, and it's the greatest thing I've ever done for myself. And I cannot stress enough to anyone that this can help you and get through those things, because those things are, that's a trauma. That really is. Being cheated on is the most hurtful and horrible thing you could do to a person. And you can't get through that on your own, because no matter what, even if you recognize it, there's still those triggers, and you'll think thoughts, and that other person isn't doing a damn thing. It's just in your head because you were cheated on.
Let me ask this, Alan. How long, and I'm sure it's not a specific time, but what are some of the signs that you're ready to get into another relationship after you've been in a really bad one? Because you always hear about the rebounds and stuff like that.
Look, I think you have to love yourself. And a lot of people don't, as much as they you would think so on looking at their social media that they do. The social media is just an outlet for them to sort of try to pretend that they love themselves, but they don't. And they're needy. And I think a person, it's not a time that they need to be ready for a relationship after cheating, but they do need to go to therapy and really understand that the person who betrayed them did bad things. That not everybody who's on the phone or in the bathroom is texting a bad person. Not everybody who comes home late is coming home late because they're coming home from a mistress's apartment or something. It's like just because the other person did all of these things, it's not fair to put that on another human being and not trust them. And I think most men that I know will not stay in a relationship that they're not trusted, because that's a big deal. And I'm not a cheater. I've never cheated. I've been cheated on, probably like a lot of listeners here, and it's hard. It really hits at your self-esteem, but you got to do the work. And I'm not going to take what my ex-girlfriend did and put that on Hudson, because there is going to be overlap. And I've got to be able to, and I'm still in therapy. And I think everybody should be in therapy, to be honest, not for cheating, but just in general. I think it's a good way to sort of keep your life going forward and to balance your life and have more intention. But that said, you don't want to replicate mistakes. And if you have been cheated on in the past, and let's say hypothetically, do the work to understand that the guy or girl that you're dating now is not them. If you see a trigger and you feel it, step outside for a second and say, okay, I know why I'm feeling this way, because so and so used to do this and that, but that's not them. And be able to take a deep breath and go back. And if you can't do that on your own, then work with a therapist, do EMDR, like what she was saying earlier, and work through the trauma and the triggers to understand that everybody's different. And that's the thing I love about my job, Scotty, is that I work with so many different kinds of people. And maybe there's like 20 personality types, but at the same time, we're all so unique. And just because one person is capable, even good people are capable of bad things, you have to look for the best in your partners and not replicate. And don't make the same mistakes. And always ask people about their last relationships. How long did they last? How did it end? Try to look at people's social circles. If they're friends with a bunch of single people who cheat, it's not to say that you're just like your friends, but if all of your friends are cheaters and you're going out with them, then you can imagine there's no one to stop you, or stop your partner potentially from doing bad things. They're encouraging it. It's misery loves company. If they're in Vegas, if they're at a club. So to just be aware of who somebody's social circle is too.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I mean, you need to have good people in your life that are not just, yeah, you're right, people, but
Correct.
people that are honest and can talk you down. And as I mentioned earlier, you can be intimate with, and they care about you and they care about your relationship, and they don't want to quickly say, well, you should just
Yes.
blah, blah, blah.
End it. Blah,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
You know,
Right,
I
but
mean,
exactly. It's like, do you have that friend if you were messed up and wasted and it was 2 a.m. and you're like on a couch and some, girl or guy sits down next to the person, do you have the friend who's going to pick you up and say, come on, let's get back to the room to protect your relationship? Or do you have the friend who's going to let it play out? And I think that matters too.
some good advice. So for anyone who is listening right now, we're right here. We are just a message away. If you have any kind of question that you want to ever ask Alan, leave a little message in the comment box and we'll respond. Hudson and Scotty B need a therapist on every platform. Save this episode because maybe there'll be a point where you're feeling something and just take a listen back to this episode. And I hope that it really does help somebody. We got to take advantage when we can. We've got a really good therapist who specializes in marriage and family counseling, and it's great that we have him. I'm Hudson Hott. Scotty Blaisdell is my partner. Alan Wagner, our therapist. Hudson and Scotty B need a therapist. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace in the chicken grease.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.